Hey guys, it's Dan with the Corporate Thief Beats. I got a new beat showcase or beat breakdown as I like to call them. This is more of an MMG Rick Ross type beat, and I'm just going to show you in the screen share of how I create that beat. But just before I go into the screen share, make sure to like and subscribe to the videos so I can keep doing these beat tutorials. I'm going to break it down like I do it all the same way every time. I'm going to go through each little section, show you the MIDI notes, show you how I created them, show you why I created them, and explain why I created a Rick Ross type beat and why I feel it's like a Rick Ross MNG type beat. Okay, to start it off, I'm going to show you the intro, and this is what the intro sounds like. It's just 4 bars. And I'm going to pause it there. Okay, let's pick out some of the instruments that I use. So I started off using 3 different pianos. Okay, one is, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more so you guys can see. One is a Steinway piano. It's a stock piano in Logic, and I just created some chords. That's all it is. Some simple kind of chords. I just played them on the piano, and it just sounds like this. That's all it really is, and I kind of layered it with like other kind of pianos as well, like a modern classic piano, which is kind of an organ. It just kind of thickens the original piano, and it's kind of a pad sound that just beefs up the piano, and it's very low. It's not really kind of taking up the space of the piano. You still hear that glistening sound of the piano, because a lot of those kind of MMG beats kind of start off like that. And I have the same thing with another one as well. It's a little bit louder. I've kind of taken out most of the bass out of it. It's kind of very treble, kind of very high end, or mids. It's more mids in that kind of section, but altogether they sound very warm and very loud, very kind of stereo spread on them. I kind of put some effects with a compressor and some tape delay just to kind of spread them out and just kind of give them some space in the mix. I've kind of did some EQ on them as well on there. So one second, I'll just check the EQ. You can see I've done some kind of EQs on them, just kind of cutting off some kind of frequencies on each of them, just to kind of, because I got the bass guitar coming in a while and I don't want them clashing with the bass guitar, but I still don't want to lose that kind of essence that the piano has, because I think it's a focal part in the song. It's those chord changes that kind of give you that kind of how can I say, that kind of rhythm to give you the kind of hip-hop feel with the drums later on. So adding to the intro, I kind of put in some kind of effects. So not really effects, kind of just other kind of symbols, and I panned them hard left and hard right. So we got a left one and we got a right one. They're the same symbol, and they kind of add a little effect. So when that kind of, it just kind of has it widens the whole stereo mix. That's what I feel like it does. It's kind of instead of kind of using these typical kind of rise effects that you hear in hip hop, it's nice to use real instruments, especially with these MMG beats, with like the guys that kind of create them, like the Justice League or Just Blaze, all those kind of beats, those kind of I don't know what to call them, like MMG kind of Austin Martin music kind of type beats. They kind of have that kind of effect, and I also have more kind of cymbals here as well, and they kind of just give another kind of effect in that kind of part. Another kind of Steinway piano comes in here as well. It's just a simple melody, very basic. important to notice there with the things is that I played this properly on the piano myself. So as you can see, the kind of velocities are all changed and kind of, it's not typed in. I didn't type it in. I'm not the greatest piano player in the world, but I do know how to play it, and I know what I'm looking for when I'm playing it too. And I kind of keep these kind of basic because I really don't want to take too much away from the rapper. Sometimes if a beat is too epic, you don't really hear what they're rapping about. So that's why I created that little simple melody. And the rides and the cymbals, they're just kind of just one hits, just kind of, as you can see, the velocities are all over the place again, and it just kind of gives a realism to the beat and gives it that kind of real instrumentation kind of sound. I have like EQs on the rides as well. As you can see, I've taken out nearly everything out of them. I don't need all that kind of sound. And the rides just kind of come in at the start as well, and they're reverse cymbals, those ones there that kind of give it that kind of live sound. They kind of give it that wide stereo feel again. And I also have some kind of violins coming in too and strings. So we'll just take a look at the MIDI for the strings. They're kind of following the piano again. And if we just take a look at that again now, we take a look at those strings. Sorry, no, I'll just pause all the other instruments so we can hear them on their own. So I'm just going to play each of them singly, but they're all playing the same thing, different kind of velocities so they don't clash with each other. Nice. They kind of have that. It's a lot of real instruments in this. Instrument sounds, a lot of kind of real kind of sounds, not really kind of synths in a sense, and they kind of all kind of give it that kind of MMG sound. They're kind of more bassy than the first one. The first one was kind of very high end. I'm gonna just play that little section again. Those strings also are kind of very high end as well. But altogether, you can kind of get the gist of what I'm trying to do and what kind of mood I'm trying to set the beat up to be. And I want to show you a cool trick, but I've kind of done this kind of trick a couple of times. As you can see, the bass is coming in here, but the bass only plays the last 3 notes of it, so it's kind of a little lick at the end. And I have 2 bass guitars there kind of playing 2 different bits just to kind of beef them up, and because I think the bass is a backbone of this song. I really believe that. You can hear what I mean when it kicks in a minute, but this is the kind of funky bit. These kind of little tricks are kind of the token of this kind of beat, this type of beat. And you can hear when it kind of comes in. One second, I'll put in the rest of these instruments. I'll just actually unsolo everything, so it's just easier. Listen to the bass now when it comes in. So that bass line really just played those last 3 notes, and it kind of gives it a great effect to come into the verse. So those 2 basses, I use the thumb bass all the time. I really love it. I've kind of tinkered with the EQ a bit. As you can see, I've kind of taken off some of the low. I've boosted a little bit of 200 because I've taken it out of my kick. I've gotten rid of the muddiness that's roughly around 300 to 400, and I've cut off some highs. But I kind of didn't go extreme with it, but I kind of did kind of cut a lot off. A lot more than I usually do. But the only reason was because I have 2 bass sounds in it. One, the thumb bass. And that's a kind of a predominant sound that I use. And then this is the reason why I added the second bass is because I think it kind of pops just a little bit more. It's a little bit more plucky, and you get a nice effect when you put the both of them together. So we'll just kind of play on now. So we're kind of coming into the verse now, and the chorus is very kind of quiet. I kind of modeled it off some of the new kind of songs that Rick Ross has kind of written to, kind of a lot of the stuff he's done with The Dream and stuff like that, or Justice League and stuff like that. I've been listening to a lot of his kind of newer work, so I kind of been inspired by that. So I'm just kind of play the verse. I'm gonna let that little kind of lick happen again. Okay, as you can see, I kind of split the this kind of verse into two halves, and you can kind of see the tricks that I predominantly do. You can see the right cymbals and all kind of letting you know that we're coming into the verse. I've kind of brought in some choirs here, and they're kind of just playing the same chords as the piano again. I've kind of just spaced them out, so some of them are playing high notes, some of them are playing low notes. I'm just going to play each of them individually. Okay. So we can see what we're going to do. And the reason why I'm layering all these instruments, playing the same kind of stuff, is because they're kind of acting as pads. When you kind of put these kind of sounds, the kind of strings, you kind of put the choirs and stuff like that into it, it kind of really widens the stereo field. So you kind of feel them at a certain angle. I've got my headphones on, and I can kind of feel them at a certain angle, and it keeps the bass right in the middle. It keeps the drums right in the middle, and it keeps them popping, because that's the hip hop kind of, the crux of hip hop is the drums and the bass. If you get them right most of the time, all the other kind of stuff is just ear candy. So I added some more choirs. They're all playing the same kind of chords, and they kind of have different velocities as well, so I'll just kind of click the velocities as well. So you can see the kind of chords I have, and they're just simple chords. I just kind of tinkered around with them, didn't kind of overcomplicate them. They're the same chords as the piano, and they just kind of add a nice effect behind the whole song. And then you can kind of hear little kind of licks and little ear candy coming into the song as well, just giving small, very small variations in the mix. And I'm going to go into the drums in a sec, but I just want to really kind of nail down the kind of instrumentation first. So this is just another piano, and it's playing a different lick than the first one. It's barely even heard, but you can, when you hear it all together, it really pops, and it just kind of gives a little bit of variation. But the bass is just the focal point of this song. It just really, really kicks in. I'm just going to talk about the drums there, just to kind of show you what I did for the drums. I didn't really kind of overcomplicate the drums either. I'm just going to show you the kicks. I have two different kicks in here now, and the reason I have two different kicks is they kind of have two different sounds. You can kind of hear what the kicks are doing there. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. So you can kind of hear what the kind of pattern of the kicks. I'll just go into the other kick. It's the same pattern again. As you can see, there's different velocities for either of them. This is a kind of a very strong kick. It really pops through the mix. I've kind of tinkered with the EQs of both of them. Kind of just a little boost, cut a bit of highs, cut a little bit of the muddiness, cut a bit of the highs there. So they're kind of the kicks that I predominantly use. But it's when the bass, when they're playing on their own, they kind of just sound kind of boring. But when you hear them with the snare and all the other instrumentation, so you can kind of hear the more of the rhythm of the song then when the kind of the rest of the instruments kind of come in. And it's the same with the bass. The bass just plays off this so well. I think the kind of drums kind of sound boring when you don't hear them, when you don't hear the bass. I think when the bass comes in, and especially the way the chords of the piano change, because the bass is kind of playing its own. Bass is actually kind of playing like a melody, which is kind of crazy. But I really like playing with stuff like that when I'm creating beats. I really like tinkering with the bass, and I've been doing it a lot more. A lot of the time I kind of just follow the piano, which I kind of am, but I'm kind of just looking for those extra notes like I would if I was creating a melody. And I'm kind of doing that with this as well. So you can kind of hear when the bass and the drums kind of come in together. It kind of has a nice funky feel to it. So as you can see now, there is no hi-hats in that section. I've kind of just, because this kind of has just the kind of same kind of structure throughout the whole song, I kind of just take bits in and out all the time. And you kind of see this with hip hop songs. A lot of the time I've kind of learned these kind of techniques from the MMG sound and from beats that I really like from the MMG kind of sound. And it's kind of the same kind of chords throughout the whole thing, but 1 minute the piano might play, the bass might play, or the hi-hats are gone. It's all just kind of just taking things in, taking things out, and just kind of putting little sounds here and there, not overcomplicating it because it still has so much space and so much room for a rapper. But I do kind of change it up in the second part of it where the kind of hi-hats and the rides all kind of come together, so it kind of has a more funky sound. Here, I'm actually just going to unmute everything and I'm going to play the last section of the first part of the verse and then it's going to go straight in. But there's a nice little trick that I do a lot of the time, and you can do this with automation, but since I'm working with MIDI, I just kind of find it easy to kind of delete stuff and stuff like that. It's probably more often than not, it's probably better to do it with automation, but I find it a bit time consuming. I like to just kind of keep it quicker so I can keep the idea in my head of what I actually want to create. So we're just going to listen to that little section there. So you can kind of get the groove where it changed up there now, and you can see that I had no hi-hats or no rides here. Well, they kind of come in for a second there. They're kind of a little bit dripped in here, and then they kind of keep playing all the time here, and they just kind of add effects. It's kind of doing it with it's kind of an effect, but it's not kind of like synthesized effects. It's very real instrumentation, which is really important with these kind of MMG beats. And you can hear the way it kind of hits all the time. And I have open hi-hats coming in as well there. It sounds erratic when you just kind of listen to it like that, but when you listen to all the drums, I'm just going to play all the drums there, and I'm going to just play I'm going to play just the bass with it. And then I'm going to kind of take out the bass and I'm just going to play the piano with it, so you can hear the kind of effect that I was kind of going for. And it just has that hip-hop sound now. I know when you kind of listen to it individually, it just sounds so robotic, kind of crap. But when you kind of play it all together, it has that kind of head-nodding funk to it. And it kind of gives a lovely space to wherever the rapper kind of comes in. when the hi-hats and all those kind of things, they kind of get a burst of energy and give them a more kind of a way to change up their raps, and they can kind of play with those kind of tricks as well, where I drop out stuff, and it's kind of a good technique to kind of add into beats. One second now, I just want to play those pianos before I kind of hit the chorus there. So I'm just going to play the pianos with it and just let you hear, because I think the pianos and the bass and the drums kind of, see, the piano kind of changes kind of in a weird kind of way. It kind of goes doom, 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 doom. It's kind of climbing and it's kind of weird, but and you can kind of hear the way the drums and the piano kind of mix well together, and the choirs and all those kind of things just kind of add that kind of they kind of just spread everything open. They kind of just kind of keep everything open, and really kind of they kind of just add a space to the whole mix, especially with that reverb on the snare kind of, and the hi-hats kind of just give it that kind of live, kind of jazzy kind of sound. And then we're kind of coming into the chorus kind of section. This is kind of a weird thing I've kind of done now, but I kind of hear it a lot in kind of these kind of Rick Ross kind of MMG beats. It's something I don't actually really like to do, but I kind of get why they do it, because it takes the energy out of the song. It's kind of almost not even a chorus, it's more of like a bridge where the verse is standing out more than the chorus. It's a very weird kind of mix. If anyone knows from the beats that I create, I always kind of like to create these epic choruses. It always has to go into this like bang, and so it's kind of weird for me when I actually kind of create beats like this, where I'm kind of going into an anti-climax, if you will. Like, it's not really as interesting as the verses, but that's the thing with Rick Ross, that's the thing with MMG. They kind of pride themselves on their rapping skills. I really like Rick Ross as a rapper, not necessarily the content, not necessarily the lyrics he raps about, but the way he raps. I think same with Meek Mill and a lot of Wale. I like the way they rap, but their content is kind of questionable at times. But the way they rap, the way they bounce to the beat, the way they kind of use the words in their raps against the beat, I really like the way they kind of construct songs. And this is one of the kind of techniques they kind of use. So the ride cymbal is kind of letting us know what we're going into the chorus. Okay, and that's the kind of bridge, the middle kind of chorus, and you can kind of hear the sounds that are already in it. As I said before, I haven't really changed anything here. I've kind of taken stuff out. I've taken out one kind of piano here. I've taken out the kind of main piano. I've kind of just kind of left the kind of organy kind of pianos with the bass. There's no drums in it. The rides kind of just let you know this is kind of a break in the song. I've kind of left the violins in there and the strings. And one kind of effect that I added there was kind of two different kind of guitars. And these are kind of the most synthy kind of things in it. I don't think the guitar sounds sound bad, but kind of listening back to it again now, I think I could have continued to EQ it maybe a little bit better. That's just something that I kind of have to work on. But I kind of used it just as an effect, as a kind of a come down from the energetic kind of verse that was just before us. So you can kind of hear the guitars and the stuff coming in. why I took out this main piano in that kind of section is because I felt that we were kind of hearing it too much since the start, so I kind of took it out, but I kind of bring it back in again there in a second. But just before I click on that, I'm actually just going to let you hear the guitar on its own and hear what those two guitars sound like. Okay, I've kind of panned them left and right. One's kind of going +10, one's going +15 or -15, whatever. And you can kind of see the kind of drastic EQ that I've kind of done on it. It probably still needs a little bit of work. If I have to be honest, I can kind of still hear frequencies that I actually just don't like. But it is kind of a mood kind of bring down. That's what I really wanted to create with it, because we're going back into those kind of energetic, bassy kind of verses where the kind of song is kind of driving. But just before I end the chorus, you kind of hear the piano coming back in. The piano comes back in again. Oh, I'll just pause that for a sec. So the main kind of piano comes back in with the bass again. And then the kind of rise let you know that you're coming back into the verse again. And that's the kind of energetic kind of feel to it where it kind of changes up. And it just goes back into that really good groove in the song again. And there isn't really much else to this. I kind of played with little kind of cuts here and there, so you can kind of hear. I'll just play this. Like kind of the same thing, just dragging and taking out little bits. But as you can see, I have little cuts here and there. I just kind of want you to play. Listen. And those little kind of cuts just add a small bit of an effect in the song. And I think I kind of have it here again. Yeah, that's really it. There's nothing really else to it. It kind of plays the same, and it kind of ends with just the pianos and some of the violins, and kind of just a really quiet ending. It's just kind of a simple ending to the song. And that's really it. That's really the crux of the whole song. And it isn't difficult, but it does have that MMG vibe. It does have some little tricks in it that just give it that kind of quality. It is kind of the same thing running throughout the song, where I've just taken stuff out and brought stuff back in. And if you listen to a lot of those MMG beats, that's the kind of key to those beats. Kind of keeping that space, kind of creating those kind of little drops where the rapper can rap over, or some of those kind of funky kind of bass riffs. It's really kind of the crux of the song. So I'm just going to give you a listen to the verse again, because that's the funky part of the song, and then that's the end of the tutorial, guys.